Okay, that's enough house music. I got to cut that timer down a little bit. So we are back at the Behind the Bits Rapid Round. I'm excited to announce this next guest, but first let's get a little bit of stuff out of the way. The current podcast out this week on Tuesday was Robert G. Lee. Fantastic conversation with one of the most sought after comics who does the warm ups for like Norman Lear shows. Norman Lear loves him. Listen to this podcast if you want to find out different ways you can take your comedy. And it's one of my favorite episodes lately. I will tell you that I'm not letting the fact that I won the Best Interview Style Podcast and Discover Pods Awards this week go to my head. I'm not going to do that. I'm still going to keep on doing what I do. And thank you for voting. I'm just going to keep thanking you for voting as long as I can. Tonight, the BTB Internet Talk Show is going to be wacko. It's going to be nuts. Steve, I think, is going to be there. But it's all people I know IRL. That means in real life for you kids who don't know what acronyms mean. I got Jason Staples, Dan West, and Jim Cliffs. These are the people who knew me way back when I did open mics and I sucked, which is pretty much the same now. But it was when I first did open mics and sucked. So they are going to be on the show tonight. If you want to listen to an hour plus of people giving me a lot of crap, tonight is going to be excellent. So let's talk about my guest. So my guest today was the winner of the Dick Purtan Comedy Showcase and was a blogger for the Huffington Post. He's the host of his own podcast, the Dwoskin Show, and is a founder of a popular co-founder of a popular Twitter app called #Roundup. I mean, what more can you want out of a comic? It's Jeff Dwoskin.
It's
Jeff, how you
Dwoskin.
doing? I'm going to move you over here.
Good. That's my good side.
Yeah. Jeff, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. I'm excited to talk to you.
Scott, when I heard you wanted to talk to me, I cleared my schedule. So
yeah,
anybody who won the Best Interview Award.
Yeah. And I got
why
a JPEG.
would I pass that up?
Yeah. The fact that they sent me a JPEG is just honor enough. But what I really like, I'm going to pull it back up. What I really like is I got a little tiny Dax Shepard in the lower corner there. He's the runner up and I'm the winner. Ha ha.
Take that, Kristen Bell.
So yeah, that was I lobbied hard for that, and just being nominated was cool, and being in the finals was neat. But I lobbied hard for the votes, and nobody else did, obviously. So I won. So there you go.
That's how I feel. Not being nominated was just an honor.
Yeah.
In itself.
So this is a rapid round. This is where I do the entertainment tonight style questions that everybody asks. And just think of me as your Mario Lopez, and except for I don't look like him. And we're going to go through some questions. We're going to really dig into the stand-up part of your life. When we get out of here, we're going to talk about some other stuff. But first of all, where are you from, Jeff?
Suburb of Detroit, West
Okay.
Bloomfield.
So you're still at where you're from, pretty much, right?
I am at where I'm from. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. I've done some comedy in Michigan. I've done Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids, so I haven't done Detroit, though.
I've done Kalamazoo once.
Yeah. I
Grand
love
Rapids
Kalamazoo.
is a beautiful city. I think I was there once for some comedy festival they had there.
Yeah. It's
Laugh Fest or something.
Yep. They've got a lot of places to get beer. That's why I like it. So
Yes.
so it's nice. So let's talk about when you did your first stand-up act. When did you first do your first time doing stand-up?
I did my first stand-up. It was probably 2002.
Okay.
I was going to say 12, but then I was like, oh, no, that's not right. My daughter just turned 18, so it was just before she was born. And so I did it as I took a class, a comedy writing class at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle.
Okay.
And then I went the week before the big show because I wanted to do it before. So my actual first time was the week before the actual big 7-minute, everyone came to see me type of thing, because I didn't want that to be the first time
Good
I was
idea.
on stage.
Yeah.
I wanted to have something under my belt.
Yeah.
So
That's a good idea. So, what prompted you to do that? Because I can see, I looked at your LinkedIn profile, and folks, if you don't know what LinkedIn is, it's kind of Facebook for business people. But your LinkedIn profile shows that you're kind of a overachiever, big brain, bigger ideas. So you were obviously doing stuff before the stand-up. What prompted you to do that?
well, thank you. It's a great. I appreciate that interpretation.
Yeah, you can quote me on that if you want.
Thanks. I was always funny at work, and I had one of my early entrepreneurial efforts was I started one of the first web development companies in Michigan in the late 90s. And Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle was one of the websites we did. And one of the pages on their website was comedy classes. So years later, when I was doing some consulting, you should take comedy, you should do stand up. And so they kind of, I'm like, I'd already always thought about it, but I didn't know it was like a thing. I didn't, you know what I mean? And so I took the class and never stopped doing it until COVID.
That's great. And so obviously it kind of, after taking the class and doing those first couple performances, it kind of got in your blood pretty quick, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's something, it's addictive. Any comedian can tell you that. It's once you start doing it, the thrill of being on stage and getting people to laugh, there's nothing better. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you, this is kind of off book, but the fact that you're, kind of an entrepreneurial soul and you create things, do you feel like stand-up kind of gets the brain working to do other things, and you feel like you do other things better?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think I think it gives me an advantage in a couple ways. One, I'm not afraid to talk to anyone.
Right.
When you're, for those thinking about starting stand-up comedy, like when you're standing in front of 50, 100 people and they're not laughing, and that's going to happen. Talking to a CEO is nothing.
Yeah, no doubt.
Believe me, when you've been through the fire of 300 people looking at you, like you're like, what the hell are you doing on that stage? When you talk to like big shots, we're like, can you talk to sea level? And you're like, yeah, I think I can handle that. Because there is nothing worse than being on stage and no one's laughing.
No doubt. It also helps for your podcast too, because you're not afraid to ask anybody to be on it. Because I mean, the worst thing you're going to get is a no, and that's better than complete silence after a punchline.
I think the benefit that I have, maybe not relevant on the first few episodes, but I think my comfort level of doing this, of the podcast, and how I sound was probably fast forwarded based on the fact that I had so much experience on stage.
Yeah.
So I could turn into that person. You can see the difference between your mic and my mic. Mine's actually on a mic stand like I would have on stage.
Yeah.
And I did that on purpose because I wanted to feel like I was on stage when I was recording interviews or doing my podcast, to put me into that mindset of being there.
Well,
I didn't get that from the arm.
That's a good idea. I've actually...
I saw you have one in the background.
I got one here, but I just use that for when I do online comedy and other stuff. But yeah, so that's a neat idea. So thinking about your influences, obviously you had to like comedy before you started doing it. Who were some of the people who really made you think comedy's cool?
The people that I loved early on were Steve Martin, Rodney Dangerfield, Dennis Miller, 80s Dennis Miller.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a very distinct difference.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
And Saturday Night Live, Dennis, and then that stand-up period of Dennis Miller. I love Rita Rudner. Grew up with Joan Rivers. Gary Shandling was always on in my house because my parents liked them also. So, and Bill Cosby. But this was before everyone.
Right.
It was okay to like Bill Cosby.
Yeah. It's okay to still like the art. You can separate the art from the artist, I think.
Well, at the time we didn't know the
the issue.
We didn't know the impending issues.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no doubt. So thinking this is something I like to ask everybody simply because I'm a voracious consumer of things that inspire me. So I like to ask everybody, what are you reading, listening to, music that's going on in your life? What's going on in your life media wise that's inspiring you?
The new Bruce Springsteen album is
There you
great.
go. Okay.
Letters,
Yeah.
letters to everybody. What is the name? Anyway, it's great. But
Uh-huh.
then also the documentary on Apple Plus is great. I find myself reading books of people that I'm about to interview. So I'm reading a book on the Incredible Hulk. I just read
Okay.
Billy Van Zant's book, Get in the Car, Jane, which is great. And, stuff like that. But I mean, if I were to look at other books that I've read, Hug Your Haters was a good one that I read.
Oh,
It was
okay.
more on customer service
Uh-huh.
being online, but nothing of interest. Mostly business books is what I read.
Yeah. Yeah, I do the same.
Yeah,
But business books can be fun too.
yeah. Some are really good. Some are
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the last question on this is, what would be your top three comedy albums or specials?
That's a rough one with only 45 seconds left to go live.
This is a very loose timeline. We're good.
I'm always bad with the very specifics. But I'll tell you the Bill Dwyer one from a long time ago, the Mary Ellen Hooper one from a long time ago. These were Comedy Central specials. Those were two of the ones that really I remembered a lot. And I'm trying to think what other ones there were. I don't know. I love Bill Burr. I mean, that's in terms of recent comics, because that's usually the next question. But like, I do. I'm trying to think like what comedy. Bill Cosby himself. There's nothing better than that. But again,
Right.
I understand the controversy.
Yeah.
But those were great. Those were the ones that I kind of grew up on and really kind of cling to.
Great. So it's cool that you mentioned Bill Dwyer because I saw him. It was one of the last shows I saw before the pandemic hit, and very good. You know, he's still an excellent comic.
Oh, Bill Dwyer's great. Yeah. Bill, yeah. He was the first person I worked with who I had seen his special, and I was like, oh my God, I get to work with someone who's special I saw.
Yeah, yeah. So before we get offline here to talk real, I wanted to talk about your podcast a little bit because I listened to a couple episodes before we got going, before we started here. So tell me a little bit about the Jeff Dwoskin Show.
Well, as you can see from the image, it's
Yeah.
sarcasm delivered. No, it's
Yeah.
the Jeff Dwoskin Show was basically my attempt to kind of just channel the creative energy once COVID hit. So
Uh-huh.
I started it. I started conceptualizing it late March and putting everything together, and then I put out the first episodes at the end of May. And so I've been doing it weekly ever since. I released 3 at first, and so it was sort of originally I was going to do something years ago with social media, but you can tell I need to cough, but I don't want to cough.
It's all right. It's cool.
No, I hate when people cough. I'm getting through it without a cough. It's like holding back a sneeze. But
Yeah.
but so I was originally going to do social media, but then because I have such a strong social media background, but it wasn't lighting my fire. So it's sort of a combination between comedy, trends, pop culture, and social media. So I do a little social media thing. I do some bits up front. I don't go right into the interview like some do, and then the interviews are all pre-recorded, so they're not happening live or anything like that. And then I focus on, you mentioned hashtag roundup at the end. I find a hashtag that we had done at some point that is relevant to something maybe that happened in the show, and read off some tweets from there, and then share those tweets on my Twitter page as well. But the interviews are, it's people that I want to talk to, some
Right.
actors, writers, comedians, so lots of fun people that I enjoy. And then, my theory is, well, if you like what I like, you're going to love the Jeff Dwoskin.
Yeah.
But, I like, and I skew, towards older pop culture. So a lot of it is, some of it's nostalgia. I'm a big fan of Comic Cons, and I love when we go going to Comic Cons and meeting all the old celebrities or older celebrities and getting pictures with them and their autographs. And you can't see it, but like my whole wall is that. So I almost consider the Jeff Dwoskin show as my Comic Con dreams coming to life.
Yeah.
Where I get to actually then talk to these people.
Right.
And so it varying lengths. Some people talk for a long time, and some are not. But they're all really interesting stories, which is what I think is at the core of everything.
Yeah.
And I love hearing them. So, and then some of the comedian ones are a little different because the comedian interviews, they don't like to necessarily be interviewed. it's more shtick back and forth, which I have a good time with too. So it's a little more kind of, you're just going back and forth and maybe talking about some things that are a little more current.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. I think your Bob Zaney interview is exactly the same length as my Bob Zaney interview. He cuts out right when he wants to. He's like, okay, gotta go.
Well, we had agreed on a time ahead of time.
Yeah.
The Bob Zaney interview is funny if you listen to the whole thing, which I encourage all your listeners to listen to my episode with Bob Zaney. But it's funny because I was trying to be respectful of the 30-minute time limit. And so it plays if you listen to it carefully and know it. Now that I'm saying what's going on, it's like the end of Lord of the Rings or Return of the King, where there's like 3 endings.
Yeah.
It's like, I was like, all right, well, because I was trying, to be respectful of it, and then it started back up again, and then I wound it back down, and I started it, and then it got started back up again, and so when I was listening back to it, I'm like, there are 3 endings to this show. But it's great because one of the funniest things that happened was in the 3rd end.
Right.
So it was like, it was fun. It was great. It is nice to, reach back to people who probably maybe wouldn't otherwise talk to me.
Yeah.
But when you have a podcast, it's another good reason to start a podcast. People.
Yeah, no doubt. You get to talk to some of your idols, and Bob was one of mine, so that's great. Ken, before we sign off here, where can people find you on the internet besides your 10 million Twitter followers?
JeffDwoskinshow.com or JeffIsFunny.com is probably easier for most people. They both go to the same place, and that's the show website. Where you can join my mailing list, listen to any episode there if you want. You can also jump and subscribe from there to Apple, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you like to listen. Mm-hmm. Definitely like and subscribe both to my podcast and to Scott's Behind the Bits. So
there you go. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And so do that. And then on Twitter and Instagram, the show is at Jeff Dwoskin Show. And my personal is Big Macher, which if you make your way to at Jeff Dwoskin Show, it's in the bio.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to know how to spell that.
Oh, that's great. Well, folks, we're going to go offline here, but I do want you to know that subscribing to the Behind the Bits podcast is going to get you some great information, because Jeff and I'm going to ask him a lot about how comedians can effectively use social media to grow their brand rather than go all pell-mell at it like I do. So I'm going to learn, and you're going to learn at the same time, but you got to subscribe to Behind the Bits. Very easy. Type in Behind the Bits to any podcast app and hit subscribe. We got the big blue logo, and it's real easy to do. Listen to all of them. They're all great. And this one's going to be fantastic too. So we are going to get offline here and